You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kirsten.
Have you heard? It's on. Can't stop me now. Oh, Lordy.
Some say that karma is a bitch.
And Karma's wife is a bitch,
Some
too.
say that karma is a bitch.
I do declare.
To the big
Yes,
show.
sir. Flexing my radio muscles here, getting them ready.
Okay, so last week I had to travel.
This is my friend that stayed in a haunted hotel.
Business. I called about 3 hotels.
She was a track star, turns out.
Apparently there was a black
Yeah.
convention going on or something, but I did call a hotel
It's the
that
big
had a room
show.
for me. I didn't know
You're
it
listening to
was
Truth on Tap with your host, Kevin Kierstead. Right now, we're getting ready to talk about the Washington Redskins and whether or not their name implies racism. I have to do a technical thing here very quickly, which is to disable speakers and get rid of an echo, and it's gone. I'm going to give you a little background here. Ever since I could say football, I was a Redskins fan, up until about the year 2000. And part of that came from being growing up in the area. I always thought you were supposed to root for the home team. I think that's a tradition that's dead now. But that got me interested in the Redskins and the Washington Capitals and the Baltimore Orioles for baseball. But I kind of stopped following baseball. I burned out on it as a kid, played 7 years of Little League, and just sort of never wanted to see a baseball again. And I was good at it. I think I just got tired of it. So with the Redskins around 2000, my daughter was born. I got busy. They had broken my heart about 100 times in a row. And I just stopped following. And then I started watching some games here in about 2010, 2011. So I call myself a fair weather fan for the Redskins. When they're doing good, I'll watch. When they're not, it won't hurt me. Capitals is a different story. I follow them through thick and thin. I always loved the emblem, the Native American Indian. There's strength that resonates from that emblem, from that artwork. When you talk about the name Redskins, you will find opposing views from the historians on where the term came from and what it means. It is amazing the divisive nature of these arguments, how far to one side or the other they are. I'm reading one article tonight that's telling me 91% of Native American Indians are not bothered by a team calling itself the Redskins. I'm reading another argument that says there is legal paperwork in the system to stop this use of what might be considered a racial slur. And the people on either side tend to be very polarized. There's nobody in the middle just kind of debating the good or the bad. But here's what I think about this. I'm just going to start with my view, and then we'll go into everybody else's view. My view, I'm a little mixed on it. What I care about is what the Native American Indians think about this name. That's all I care about. If you think I care what a 45-year-old white suburbanite thinks, you're mistaken. So screw him and people like him, because you have nothing to lose in this game of deciding whether or not to change the name Redskins to something else. You have no dog in that hunt. It is expensive to change a team name. We know this. It could cost the Redskins $4 or $5 million, I guess, to just do the logistics side of it. Yeah, that's nothing. That's less than a quarterback salary. Come on. Dan Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, says he will never, ever change the name. Now, everybody that's coming up with these strong statements, you need to change the name. We've got famous sports writers who will not use the word Redskins. Instead, they just say Washington. We've got sports commentators who refuse to say the name now. It's getting kind of crazy. And then there were 2 articles that came out in the past 24 hours when I started reading up on this. One was from Forbes.com. I forget what the other one was from. It was from NBC Sports. And in fact, WBX AM 950, a radio station, had a thing on it just 3 days ago. Forbes says Dan Snyder should change the name of his football team now. I read the article, not very impressive. Not impressed with the research done on the article. I look for facts, and if you don't give me facts, I got nothing to work with. King drops use of Redskins name. This from NBCSports.com 2 days ago. Okay? Some people getting offended by it. There's a huge debate going on right now at debate.org on it. But what I'm seeing in these debates is a bunch of college-age white kids throwing their weight around as much as they can, and to them I say, shut the hell up. I want to hear what the Native American Indians have to say, and I don't want to hear what you think. Not about this. It's not important. Your feelings on this are not important. You got nothing to... If you're a white American right now, and especially in the past, but right now still, don't bitch. Just don't. Just don't. The people of other races are out there, and with the exception of certain breaks they might get in affirmative action, which is going down, they're going to get rid of affirmative action, or certain agreements with the government, as you might find with Native American Indians, they don't have it easy. Don't say that. Don't even think it. If you're white in America, you should make it all right. You should make it all right, unless you've got a disability. So who matters in this decision? The Native American Indians matter to me. I don't care what anybody else thinks, whether it's Dan Snyder, whether it's the Redskins team, whether it's the fans. Unless they're Native American Indians, I don't care. I say, here's what we ought to do. We, the white European Americans that came in and sequestered this country from the Native American Indians, ought to show them how great democracy works, shouldn't we? By letting them vote for whether or not that name should be allowed to stay or go, and repeating that vote annually. How could we better demonstrate the greatness of democracy than to do that to a people we have conquered? And let me say something else while I'm on that. Nobody names a football team something that they can't respect. The players wouldn't want to play for them. The fans wouldn't want to cheer for them or wear the logo. Now, you get some questionable ones out there, I think, like the Ravens or the Dolphins. Not something you necessarily associate with tough and strong, but smart. Airborne is good enough, I guess. Your Eagles, your Seahawks. Kansas City Chiefs, well, that's okay because we're naming a rank of a Native American Indian and not the color of their skin, so that's okay. Ranks are okay. The color of the skin is not. How come we don't have a team called the Wetbacks? You ever wonder about that? Well, that's a racist slur, Kevin. Yeah. But you know what it represents? It represents a people willing to give up everything they've got to get to freedom. That's admirable. That's admirable, but you're never going to see it as a name for a pro sports team, because that is considered a racist slur. It's not in debate. The term came from the claim back in the 60s by some reporter. There was a wetback operation. I think it was Operation Wetback, actually. The Mexicans were crossing the Rio Grande, so by default they were wet. And that's, they were often seen from behind because they were running from authorities, so they called them wetbacks. So at the time, it probably wasn't offensive, and it probably was not intended to offend. It just was intended to differentiate them from your average American citizen. But now it is. It's a slur, and it's never going to be used. Well, people back in the 30s in Boston, where the Redskins were born, didn't see the Redskins as a racial slur. Even then, people were smart enough to know that the Redskins, the name, signified a very strong and powerful icon of American history. Let me promise you this. We white folks would not have beat the Native American Indians if they had had better numbers. They were amazing warriors. They knew the land like they knew the back of their hand. They were tough. And they were strong. And they were fast. Now, if they would have had more numbers than us, unless we would have really gotten lucky, or, had a even more refined powder firing mechanisms in our guns and cannons, then we would have lost. Some wars are pretty close, and that one wasn't because of numbers, but not because of ability, not because of skill, not because of strength. The Redskin is a way of showing a symbol in American history that is nothing but strong, that needs to be rescued in order to be preserved because their numbers are so low now. Is it the name? Could we change the name to Native American Indian? Well, that's kind of long. Everybody who's arguing against the name Redskins, who wants it changed, is also arguing against names like Chiefs, names like Indians. You know, let's think about this for a second before we get our pants in a wad. Or panties, depending on your sex. What if we had to change the name of every team, every product, every radio station, every TV station, every mascot that offended one person or more? That would be a hell of a world, wouldn't it? You wouldn't recognize the world from one day to the next. So there's a line in there, wouldn't you say? There's a line where we say, I'm sorry you're offended, but your numbers are not high enough to warrant change. There's only 17 of you in the world that are offended by this. We're not going to change it. So if we're doing that already, wouldn't it make sense to let the majority rule on the rest? Turns out that more of non-native America is against the name Redskins than Native Americans are. How about that? And I don't give a damn what them yuppies think. All I care about is what the Native Americans think. If they're offended by it in numbers greater than 50%, I think it should be changed. But they're not. They're not. 90% of the Virginia tribe that was interviewed, 98% were Redskins fans. They kind of rather liked the idea that they were being represented on a pro sports football team, a sport that lionizes strength, speed, grit, blood, sweat, and tears, victory overall. I can't blame them. The Vikings are a team that is actually named after my ancestors. And considering I'm part Indian too, I feel equal offense to both, which is that I'm not offended. I think they're paying homage to a class of people, a warrior class. How about that? You know, now if you get 58% of Native American Indians saying this is offensive, the term Redskins came up to differentiate us from the white population and was used offensively from 1860 on. Now we've got a different story. Now I'm willing to consider the change. But right now, in the latest poll, we're looking at 91% approval rate from Native American Indians. But it's not fair to talk about polls till we talk about polling methods. So we got to go into that a little bit. There is an inherent difficulty in polling Native American Indians. What is done is the traditional, if you've ever taken a statistics class at a college level, you'll see how hard it can be to get accurate data. So your cross-section has to be verifiable, essentially. People can say they're Native American Indians in phone polls and not be. And you know, people that are doing these polls aren't driving out to the reservation to ask. So how much of the response is actually Native American Indians? Well, they've done two polls. One was Sports Illustrated. I forget who did the other, but it wasn't official, even more official than Sports Illustrated as far as getting data. They were the ones that came up with the 91%. Sports Illustrated came up with 71% across the country. That's not just Native American Indians, but everybody. You know, I think it's time that we at least admit that even if these polls have your standard deviations, they're probably pretty close. They're probably within that margin of error, 4 or 5%. Now, the way to find out, and what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go to some Native American forums on the internet, and I'm just going to start posing the question. I've started my research. You know, you see it posted in Yahoo questions, you see it posted in various forums already on the internet, and what I'm seeing more often than not is that the Native American Indians don't care. They've got bigger fish to fry. They're too mature to be worried about what the white man names one of his football teams. So maybe we shouldn't be as worried about this as we are. However, I'm sensitive to the needs and desires of any people that is being called out on the color of their skin. So if it does start bothering them, if I'm the owner, I'm going to sit down and have talks. And frankly, if I'm the owner, we're doing the democracy thing. We're looking for a 51% vote, and that's what it stays this year, and we'll have another one next year. And we'll just do it that way. Dan Schneider says it's never going to change. They're never going to change the name. Well, Mr. Schneider, you do have a limited lifespan, and one might guess that you will not be the owner of this team forever. So it's kind of hard for you to say they'll never change their name. A lot of people writing on this, people coming from the social issues angle, are saying that the Redskins are going to change their name. It's just a matter of time. I think this cannot be left up to races other than Native American Indians. That's what I think. I think we need to better define the line that needs to be crossed in any area of this type in order to change it. You know, if somebody decided that lived in Norway and had definitive ties, like my family does, to the Norse Raiders, the Vikings, and decides we're offended by the name Vikings because it was used in a derogatory term to describe people that raped and pillaged, and they wanted it changed, how many? How many would have to bitch before you changed it? 51%? Why don't we just adopt the rule of majority? What's fairer than that? Some say, well, if even one complains, that's too many. Well, let me tell you something. If we're going to go on just one complaining, your world is going to change so much from day to day, you're just not going to recognize it. I think we got to let the Native American Indians handle this one and decide how they want it. I think that's the right thing to do. Now, if you want to imagine this in another context, imagine that you have some team called, the Tennessee Honkies, the LA Negroes, the Minnesota Wetbacks, the Florida Polacks. How's that feeling when I mention your race? Is it feeling like you're being lionized, or that you're being offended? It's a kind of a tricky issue, but I can guarantee you that on all four of those counts, you've got the 51+% vote to get rid of the name. You've got it. They're obviously racial slurs, or at least implying racism, even if they're not traditional racial slurs. I'd like to hear what you think about this. If you will, go on the Facebook page at least. Go to facebook.com/truthontapshow. There is a status up there that will allow you to comment. You can also chat right now with me in the chat room by going to the show link, which you must have already done if you're listening to this, and clicking on the chat. And we can talk about it. Eventually, I'll get the phone system working here through Skype or through Google Voice with this crazy feedback thing you got to do. And we'll be able to take the live calls. I'm coming over from Blog Talk Radio, so I'm not used to not having live calls. But we'll get that fixed eventually. What are you going to do if you're named the Redskins? Who wins and who loses if the Redskins change their name? Who wins and who loses? And can they change it to something very similar? Or will it have to be something much different? There are about 16 high schools, I believe, that were called the Redskins that have changed their name. Do you know that? But there's about 66 that haven't. Wait a minute. If I do that math tends to agree with the national average on who's okay with it and who's not. How about that? See how that works? There's a correlation. But what about the Native American Indians, and what say did they have? There were some Native American Indians that filed suit to get rid of this name. In 2009, it was tossed. Okay? So they didn't have enough to go on. Apparently, those judges decided the 51% must be met, and it was not. Who knows? I haven't read their report on why they tossed it yet, if they even made one. I haven't read dissenting opinions either, and I'd be interested in reading those. This is an idea I didn't even have. I had a friend, my friend Todd came up with this idea, who consequently happens to be the drummer for Bad Ace, and we will be playing a song by Bad Ace tonight called Kelly to close out the show with. A little heads up on that, if I want to get my show onto iHeartRadio, which is pretty much the jackpot for anybody doing broadcasting on the internet, I can't play music longer than 30 seconds. So I may have to figure out some kind of trickery to chop up songs, or I don't know. May not be able to always have a song at the end of the show. I'll figure that out, but I just want to give you a heads up there. Everybody loves Bad Ace, and if it's gonna make people mad, I'll just skip iHeartRadio and grow my base in another way. Going back to the offensive racial slurs for the names of sports teams, what's going to happen when, if you've noticed, animal rights are emerging, aren't they? You're seeing it. You're seeing animals treated more and more like humans, especially pets, cats and dogs, birds. What's going to happen when somebody says, I don't think the Bears would want us using their name, considering we're driving them out of their natural habitat, killing them for their hides, and shooting them because they threaten us. And that goes for the Sharks, too. That's coming. That argument is coming. Isn't it silly? Or is it? I think it's silly. I think if you can't offend something that is alive, then you cannot argue that they are offended. They have to understand your language to be offended. They have to understand your intent to be offended. Not all animals are capable of that. You know? That just kind of illustrates on the outlines the silliness of some of the arguments against offensive names in the world of commercial sales. And the NFL is a world of commercial sales. They got to make money. They got to sell gear. They've got to sell commercials. They got to get broadcast. They got to dominate the airwaves. The Redskins right now are the third richest team in the NFL. I don't know what the first two are. That the article I have doesn't state it. I suspect it's probably like the Steelers and the Cowboys or something. I don't know. But hey, there you go. There's the team, the Cowboys. What's going to happen in 100 years when guys that are actual, what we call cowboys today, they're out on a ranch, got the hat, got the lasso, doing all that, they say, well, cowboys, the term, represents an era in American history where we were rather unrefined, I'd say. Just a riding and a shooting and a drinking that hoo-hoo. We don't want to be called cowboys anymore, and we don't think the NFL team should be called the Cowboys. How about the Western Ranchers? Well, feed me a pickle and call me Sally. I didn't think a cowboy could get offended by anything. You just corrected me in this hypothetical scenario. Is there going to be a limit, and what is the limit going to be? Do you know how much easier the future would be in the area of politics involving names that might offend if we would just come up with a 50-50 line of some kind, a very definitive drawing in the sand where if you cross it, the name must be changed. If you don't cross it, the name can stay the same. Owners should always have the right to change a name, if they want to anyway. But, I don't know. How do you have accurate polling? How do you decide if something is a legitimate argument to even begin doing the polling on? Do you have real votes? And how monitored are they? If we can have problems with national voting machines and hanging chads, we certainly could have problems figuring out if the Redskins should change their name with regard to the accuracy of the vote. So this is a tough one. I know it's a tough one. But I think we can come up with a definitive answer. How about the Raiders? I like, my friend Todd likes the Raiders. He's a huge Raiders fan. And there they are, basically signifying the Vikings and the Viking mentality. Bad guys. What if those guys, are getting offended, saying, we've changed. We don't come ashore and kill everybody and take their shit anymore. We actually do like sea tours and deep sea fishing expeditions. It could happen. You know, there's got to be a line somewhere. Got to be a line somewhere where you say this argument is not valid. We are not going to push for this team to have to change their name to avoid offending people. The right thing to do is to have that vote. That's the right thing to do. Have the vote by that denomination. And that could be any denomination. Men, women, Hispanics, Christians. Doesn't matter. Whatever divides people, let that group decide if something of theirs is being used in an improper manner. I think it's fair. And you know, you're going, well, that goes against free speech. Well, maybe, but you have to remember that we're also setting examples for our kids. And if we go teaching them that it's okay to name a team, the Minnesota Wetbacks, that's going to bring them into a coarser line of thinking, wouldn't you say, regarding tolerance of other races? I'd say so. I think we've got to be careful about that. And since this station is getting somewhat official here, I think I'll go ahead and do a little station ID for you.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierster.
Yeah, that's Wes Johnson, Capitals arena announcer. He's the real deal. And since I don't sound like Don Imus, I need a little bit of help there. I needed a guy who was a pro. Help me out a little and come out to the ranch and slap a cow in the ass. You know, when you slap a cow on the backside, lightly, he'll go 17.5 miles an hour, sometimes 18. A lot of people don't know that. It's a funny thing. I know I always sound drunk, but really it's because my lips are in my nose. A lot of people don't know that as well. We'll come back to that later. That's some crazy stuff, man. All right, well, that was Don Imus giving his opinion on it. And my comedy for the evening. 30-minute spot we're limited to here on Spreaker.com. I'm allowed to broadcast more. Again, if you want to continue this conversation, we may do another show later. But for right now, I am going to go ahead and load up Kelly by Bad Ace. And we're just going to say that it's up in the air. What do you think? Did we draw a line somewhere? Did we change the name? Did we leave it alone and say, grow the hell up, it's not bothering Native American Indians? I want to hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Go to the Facebook page and let me know. Facebook.com/TruthOnTapShow. You have been listening to the Truth on Tap Show with your host, Kevin Kierstead. Peace!
She took me now screaming, but my mind I was only dreaming. Can't help but stand, and then you pushed me down. When I gave you my hand, I was over, and I'm a little bit colder. Oh, now sometimes a man don't know what a woman can do till the jail breaks through when it's over, and he's a little bit colder. Oh, now everybody's got to run and she got to shout out, baby, but I might be crazy, but I really do believe you're lying when you say there ain't no use in trying. To get out to get it, I can see that you're never gonna get it. Oh, can't you just give me a minute? Can't you see that I'm trying to get in it? Can't you let me hang and then you cut me down when the whistle sang you another name? And it's a whole new game now. Oh, now it's time to take your tall tales and leave them at the tracks, cause the train don't stop for you and me. And I'm a westbound man, I've got to catch my ride on. Destination, think I need a permanent vacation. Hold up on another revelation in the lobby of a cold concrete steel station. Oh, now maybe I'm a loser. Maybe all my chills amuse you. Oh, but that don't mean a thing now. Everybody's gotta love it somehow. So don't look for me no more. I was gone 10 minutes before you slammed the door. And I'm